This week on Gymwright Live, we interview best-selling author and all-around champion of entrepreneurship, Mike Michaelowicz, and discuss how to transform your gym from a cash-eating monster into a money-making machine. Check it out. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Gymwright Live. I am your host, Marcus Gurzy, and this week we welcome to the show a very, very special guest, Mr. Mike Michaelowicz. As I mentioned during the intro, among many other things, Mike is a best-selling author of what I would consider to be some of the best books for entrepreneurs. That said, today we will be discussing Profit First, which provides you a dummy-proof approach to making your business profitable regardless of its current financial situation. By the way, Mike has also authored several other books that have become staples for entrepreneurs: The Pumpkin Plan, The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, Surge, and now his latest book, which will actually be released, I believe, next week on August 21st, called Clockwork, which I'm excited to get my grubby little paws on as soon as Amazon sends me my pre-ordered copy. So nonetheless, Mike, it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Marcus, thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure. And now for those who have somehow managed to make it this far and still not know you or any of your work, would you mind telling us a little bit about your journey in entrepreneurship and how the book we're going to be discussing today, Profit First, came to be?
Yeah, sure. I think there's a majority of people that don't know about me yet, but hopefully this will be a good introduction. I'm an entrepreneur myself, many years. I was actually in the tech space. Had the good fortune of building and selling a couple companies. One was acquired by a Fortune 500. Another one I sold to private equity. But I think the real interesting part of my story was not that. It was the third business I had, which was angel investing. Ends up I was the worst angel investor ever. The blend of arrogance and ignorance is a deadly combination. I thought I knew everything. It was a disaster and actually put me on the verge of bankruptcy. It destroyed myself. I lost my house, I lost my possessions, I lost everything, and had to scrap my way out. I even went through depression. But what happened in that stage was I challenged all of my preconceived notions about what makes a successful entrepreneur, started journaling about it. That became books, and devoted my life to being an author. So that's where I am today. For the last 10 years, I'm an author of entrepreneurial topics. And every book I write is a struggle that I've personally faced myself, and I believe countless other entrepreneurs face. And my goal is to fix that, to eradicate entrepreneurial poverty. I
love it, man. I'm a huge fan of your books, as I mentioned before we went live here today. I actually was using a system very similar to Profit First before I even came across the book. And it was the differentiator between us struggling like many other small businesses do as we were getting off the ground, or us being successful, which we were very successful with the gym and actually ended up being able to sell it at a great profit. Then I came across Profit First, and I thought it was just such an elegant way to take something that is so scary to many, and frankly for me as a consultant, a big challenge to get people to wrap their heads around and have a system that's kind of dummy proof. And now I'm able to just send people the book and say, read this, do this, and now we actually have a good foundation to work from. So thank you for putting that together. I'm excited to have you on here and to get to dive into Profit First a little bit further for our audience. If you wouldn't mind, could you give us a quick overview of the system and really why it works so well for countless business owners all over the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'll start with the problem. There was a study that I heard of that 83% of small businesses are not profitable. And this study, as I understand, went on to a global level, 180 million small businesses in the globe. This means most businesses, hundreds of million plus businesses, are not profitable. So most people watching this show probably are surviving check by check. And it was, first of all, I thought I was alone. I was the only business that wasn't profitable. As I grew those companies that I told you about, while I was able to successfully sell them, they weren't profitable when I was running it. And then I thought at first, what's wrong with me? Is there something missing in my mind? I can figure out everything else, attracting prospects, delivering my promises, setting up my facility, but I can't be profitable. What's wrong with me? And that's when I had the realization there's nothing wrong with us. There's something wrong with the formula we follow. The foundational formula for all businesses is sales minus expenses equals profit. We're told profit comes last. And when profit is treated as an afterthought, is never going to happen. What I teach in Profit First is that profit comes first. The new formula, sales minus profit equals expenses. And what I mean by this is every time you have a transaction, we immediately take a predetermined percentage of that money as profit, allocate it to a profit account, hide it from ourselves, and run our business off the remainder. And if we apply this pay yourself first principle, but apply it to our business, we are now reverse engineering profitability. If I want 20% profit in my bottom line, that means I'm going to take 20% immediately when money comes in, and I have to figure out how to run my business off the remainder. If I can't, it doesn't mean that I need to take profit. It means there's something fundamentally wrong with my business that I need to fix to make that 20% a reality.
Yeah, 100%. Just the notion of kind of take it away first. I know I've heard you say, it's what is addressed first that gets prioritized, and what gets addressed last gets the lowest priority and usually gets skirted off to the side, which is typically with that formula, profit. But when you can put that first and make sure that that is always spoken for, it forces you to make it happen with the rest. And it forces that innovation, which is really what this is all built around with entrepreneurship. With, we figure out how to make things work. And that's what allowed us to get the business off the ground in the first place, probably with very little, especially for us in the gym industry, where we're usually maxing out a couple of credit cards, starting out doing workouts in parks or in a small facility, and it grows and it grows. And if you can just take that philosophy and say, well, I'm going to keep that as a core tenet to how we do business, is that we're always going to figure out how to make it work. Take the profit out first, take the taxes out first, make sure that you have yourself covered and you can stay focused on the business. You will figure out how to make the rest work. And it's incredible what you can make happen. Because when I first implemented the system when we launched Active, the first reaction from me was, what about that? I could use that extra money for marketing or for other things. Like, come on, I need that. My partner, who was the one who was enforcing this, was saying, nope, that's always spoken for. We always have that set aside, including like annual affiliate dues and a variety of other things. And I was having to make it work on like 60%, 65%. And I'm like, dude, you're choking me here. But what happened was, guess what? We figured it out and we made it work. And then quarter time comes around and we sit down with our accountant and we realize, hey, all of our money for taxes was set aside, and we actually had more than we thought. And now we rolled that into profits, and now we had our profits, and we were actually profitable right out of the gate. And it was such a game changer for me as an entrepreneur, this being like my fourth company at the time. I'd never seen that before. And I realized like this is an important concept to carry forward. And now in my teachings with gym owners, it is one of the very first things I begin with.
I love hearing that. There was a theorist, his name was Northcote Parkinson, from the 1950s, studying human behavior. And what he theorized is that as a supply of a resource increases, our consumption increases. Think about our diets. If I love chocolate chip cookies, if you put one cookie in front of me, I'll limit myself to consuming one. If you put 15 cookies in front of me, I guarantee you I'll eat more than one. So as the supply increases in its availability, our consumption increases. But this isn't just true for cookies, it's true for everything. And what we'll see in our businesses, and I bet you people watching right now can relate to this, as our income increases, the more sales we have coming into our business, the more members we have for our gym, as that increases, almost uncannily, our expenses run at an exact same parallel rate. And that's the example of Parkinson's law. We will never sell our way out of it. And sadly, I thought for myself, once I hit $1 million, finally off profit. Well, when that didn't happen, I thought maybe it was 2 or 10. There's never that big moment transition point. We have to make this a habit. I say in the book, and I say in life, profit is not an event or eventuality. Profit is a habit. Every transaction, we must bake it in. So when we take our profit out, we are now constraining how much money is in the business at any given moment by taking our profit first. We will adjust, according to Parkinson's law, our behavior to consume less. And the interesting thing is we also become highly innovative. We find ways to extract or stretch that dollar farther that's left over.
Yeah, and what I like so much about this too is that it just it allows us to not try to be someone we're not, right? So the whole concept of having the bank accounts actually at different banks, to where if I don't see it, I mean, as silly as it sounds, I mean, I know it's there, but I kind of forget about it. And now I just do what I do, looking at a real number relative to what I'm trying to remember, like, there's some profitability and taxes that I need to be able to take out later. It's what's there is there, and that's what I'm going to use, and I'm just going to do what I do. And it allows me to kind of stay in my lane rather than forcing unnatural behavior And now, whenever you do that with someone, the likelihood of someone truly adapting to that and taking that on is so unlikely. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, when I wrote Profit First, I realized that a tendency I had, I thought was unique to me, is actually a tendency of most entrepreneurs. We do what we call bank balance accounting. Now, traditional accounting is read your income statement, your balance sheet, your cash flow statement, tie in all these different numbers, KPIs, all these things. Look at that on a weekly or ideally daily basis, and never look at your bank account because that's not reflective of where you are, and run your business off these numbers. But the true entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, is we trust our gut. So what do? We take shortcuts. We log into our bank account, and I followed a real simple system. If I had money, I knew I could spend it. If I didn't, I knew it was time to panic. And so I ran my business off this daily login or sometimes hourly login to my bank on my phone. So Profit First is a system that's literally, as you shared, it's with your bank accounts. What happens is when you log in, we set multiple accounts with different intended purposes. One's for profit, but one's for paying the owner, who I argue is often the most important employee, their salary, tax reserve, buying equipment. Maybe you should have a capital expenditure so you can get that new fitness equipment and so forth. And now when I log in, I know what money has been allocated to what purpose so I can work within the confines of that account. Additionally, certain monies need to be removed entirely so we aren't tempted to steal from ourselves. I have a profit account at a bank that's 2 hours from here, and I have no digital access, which means I can get the bank balance mailed to me, and it does once a month, and that's the only time I look at it. But if I ever want to withdraw money, I have to do a 2-hour, I call it the drive of shame. If I want to take money from myself, I got to sit in that car for 2 hours and say, am I using this because I'm stealing from myself? Isn't there an innovative way? And sometimes literally I've turned the car around and said, damn it, make it work. Profit is intended to celebrate. As a business owner, you started a gym, you have courage. You have done what 93% of the world population will never do. You started a business. Profit is a distribution to the shareholders who took on extraordinary risk and started a business. So when you do get access to that money, it should be a reward to yourself, a celebratory account.
Yep, love it. Would you mind if we kind of just ran through the core principles of Profit First so people can get kind of a lay of the land here without us kind of skipping over too much?
Yeah. So step one, I call it small plates. Basically, if you have one plate or one large account with all your money in it, it's like Thanksgiving dinner. I suspect you would never pull out that turkey out of the oven and tell your guests and family, hey, everyone, grab a knife and fork, everyone for themselves, fight for it. No, you carve the turkey so everyone gets a piece of the turkey on their plate. The same thing with our money. If we have a singular account, and most businesses do, a single checking account, all the money comes in there, and we don't know how to carve up that cash turkey, so the next person that's hungry is stabbing, or next part of the business that's hungry stabs its fork into there. We need to set up small plates and apportion this meal spread out. And you can do it based upon percentages. And it's in my book, and it's available for free download, so we don't have time to go into it. But different size businesses, I found there's different ideal percentages. I call them TAPs. Mm-hmm. But what we do is we have these different plates or accounts for different purposes: taxes, owner's pay, profit, capital expenditure, and so forth. The second step is we need to always take our profit first. This came from the fitness industry. They found in diets most food is served simultaneously, and therefore people default to their preference. They'll eat the steak and potatoes before they ever touch the vegetables. Yet we all know vegetables are the most important ingredient: fiber, nutrients, vitamins. Well, what they said is if you simply serve vegetables and nothing else, guess what? People will start eating vegetables. Then serve the meat and potatoes later, and it'll bring about balance. In our business, we must allocate profit first and remove that. That's the vegetables. That's the health of your organization. Profit translates to sustainability. Transfer that, remove it, then run your business off the remainder. So the sequence does matter. The third principle is remove temptation. We already talked about this pretty extensively. When we allocate money to our profit, when we reserve money to pay the taxes of the owner, yes, the business should be paying your taxes. Those monies will sit for a while. We got to get them off of your current bank, because I know it's only a matter of time before I was tempted to dip in there and steal my own money. Hide that money away. With the money hidden away, you forget about it and you run your business off the remainder. Then when it is the appropriate time to do a profit distribution or to pay your taxes, the money's been reserved in advance. And the final thing is to get into a rhythm. And what I mean here is many businesses are reactionary. They go through these peaks and valleys. The business is starving for money, and there's panic. Money flows in, and they actually go into a bloat, and they consume the money way too fast. We actually need to get into a rhythm. For most businesses, I find what the 10-25 rule applies. This means the 10th of the month and 25th of the month. The money that's come into the business gets allocated to those accounts on the 10th and 25th. Bills get paid from the operating expense account. Profit gets allocated and removed and stored away and so forth in this rhythm. When we do this, we have a much better control of our cash flow. The beautiful part of this entire profit first system is you, the entrepreneur, don't need to change at all. Log into your bank account like you always have, but you do the entire thing on your bank account because all the money is there. And when we do this rhythm, this process of repeating it over and over, you don't need to know how to read a cash flow statement. In fact, most people don't. I question if some accountants even know how to read a cash flow statement for real. But by doing this rhythm, we'll see kind of the pulse of how money's flowing through our business every 2 weeks, and you'll have a better grip on your business. You'll be permanently profitable, and you'll understand your cash flow inherently.
Beautiful. Well said. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
What are some of the common mistakes you tend to see with people as they're trying to implement this system? As we do have quite a few people here in the network who have read the material, and I know that are either in the process of implementing this or have implemented it. What are some things that you've seen people are doing wrong and maybe how to avoid them?
I think there's three biggies. The first one is the spreadsheet or the accounting system. They say, you know what, I don't want to set up these bank accounts. It's too much of a pain in the butt to get that set up. I don't have an hour to spend at the bank and configure this. So what I'll do is I'll set up a spreadsheet. But if our natural tendency is to log into our bank account, we are circumventing that spreadsheet and the whole thing collapses. You must do this at your bank. Spend the hour or two down there and get it set up. And the bank fees, if your bank is going to charge you fees, realize they are a vendor to you. You can negotiate that, or you have the right to find a new bank that doesn't charge fees. There's many banks that don't, particularly federal credit unions, small regional banks. I've had extraordinary experiences with them. Next problem is people going too fast. Like, listen, I go to a gym. I'll tell you, the first time I went to the gym and I wanted to increase my strength, particularly on bench presses, and I'm just, I'm a 90-pound weakling. My trainer didn't say, Mike, bench 300 pounds today. He knew my shoulders would rip out. We started with 20-pound dumbbells, right? And now I'm doing a pretty good weight. We built up. If you go into profit first and you say, you know what, I'm going to hit 20% profit starting today, and you've never been profitable, it's going to rip your shoulders out. We have to build slowly. So start very slowly, maybe even 1% profit initially. Win over your own confidence and beat your own skepticism. Then, once you have your own confidence, then go to 2, 3, and build up. And the last thing, hands down, is the resistance of the outside community, particularly accountants and bookkeepers. They'll say, this isn't how accounting is done. This is too much work, reconciliations. Why don't you just do traditional accounting? Resist that, because basically ask yourself, how has it been serving you? Have you been profitable following the traditional accounting process and not doing this? If it's been working, then you don't need to change. If it hasn't been working, you need to challenge change. And just because your accountant says it's not right, it doesn't mean it's not right. It just means they don't have experience with it. So challenge that notion. Try something new if it's not been working in the past.
Yeah. And for those of you guys watching here who remember the episode I did with John Briggs from Insight Tax a while back.
Oh, he's a stud.
He's a stud. Yeah, he's fantastic. He's actually who I work with personally and who I refer many of our gym owners out to because he is specialized in working with gym owners, specifically CrossFit gym owners and boxes. So if you're looking for a profit first professional, which is someone who is an accountant, using this method and has proven that they know what they're doing with this, they will be able to help you. And John is a phenomenal example for that. So we'll link to him again in the show notes as well. I know that we're running tight on time here for you, Mike, because you've got a busy schedule here. So one thing I wanted to get into for my own selfish reasons before I get you off the show here, you've got a new book coming out, Clockwork. I'm obviously fanboying about it. I'm looking forward to getting it. You mind telling us a little bit about what the book is about and what we have to look forward to?
Yeah, I had an epiphany 6 years ago. That's when I started writing this book. It takes me a long time to write books because I put a lot of research and testing into it. I discovered that there is a Maslow hierarchy of needs equivalent from our personal lives that applies to business. And I found foundationally the most important need every business has is sales. If you don't have members coming to your gym, you're out of business. So we need that inbound cash flow. The second, though, level up is profitability. Permanent, predictable profitability, because that's sustainability. You need profit in order to stay in business. The next level up, though, is time. Once you have sustainable sales, predictable profit, now it's about the allocation of time. It's the only resource on this planet that is not replenishable that I can think of. So therefore, we need to be very diligent in the use of time. Ultimately, as an entrepreneur, we need to shift you from the person doing work inside your gym to a person designing how gyms work. In fact, in the book, I talk about a gym owner who's been wildly successful of removing herself from her gyms. Specifically, she designed her businesses to run themselves. And so Clockwork is the process, and it is a process, it's a 7-step process to systematically remove yourself from working inside the business to someone who's designing and orchestrating the resources to achieve the outcome you want. Never again will you work in the business. You are now designing the outcomes for the business.
Love it. Looking forward to it. And that comes out next week, August 21st, right?
That's right.
Yep. For those of you watching this live, get on Amazon. We'll put a link in the show notes here soon, but you can just find it by searching Clockwork, Mike Michaelowicz. It will pop up. You can pre-order there. Mike, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find more about you and about what you're up to?
Well, Marcus, it's been a joy being here. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so hyped up on Clockwork right now. I set up a resource page that is probably the most comprehensive I've ever done. It's at clockwork.life. That's .life. So at clockwork.life, I have resources I created a video series. I have a quick start guide even. Like I realize when I open my computers, I don't read through that full manual. I just read the one page of how to get started. I'm like, oh, I need that for a book. So that's all there for free download if you go to clockwork.life, and that's already been activated, so you can do it right now.
Excellent. Mike, I want to thank you so very much for being on the show and dropping knowledge on our audience, and look forward to our paths crossing again in the near future. For those of you watching and listening, please head on over to iTunes. Gymwright is now also on iTunes and Spotify, Stitcher, all over the place. So it's no longer just here in the Facebook Live group or on YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review, subscribe, and we'll see you again next week. Mike, thanks again, and everyone have a great weekend.